Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. My guest today is a young woman from one of the greatest families in Danville. She is a local graduate from San Ramon High School and went to Cal Poly. She's a fantastic example of an incredibly hard worker, an optimist, and something that younger people should really aspire to as far as work ethic and focus. Because let's face it, the average person coming out of school these days is a little bit destitute, a little bit anxious, and this woman just charges right ahead, and a great example for everyone. Without further ado, the woman, the myth, the legend, Kelly Lyons. Here we are. Thank you for coming.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers. How was work today?
It was good. Good day in the life of the SDR.
Right. You guys have to make something like 50 calls a day, huh?
Yeah. 50 calls, 50 emails, and then we make videos too, which is actually my favorite part of it.
Wait, what do you mean?
Creative.
What video?
They're called Vidyard videos. So it's just like a application on your laptop, and it's just a way to kind of get to know your prospects a little bit better, show them that you're human, you're not just like a bot messaging them. So we have our whiteboard with like their name on it, and you're like, hey, Kelly here, just wanted to connect with you. And they're super cheesy, but honestly pretty fun to make.
Wait. So do you send, like, you cold email people and you send them a video? Like, you don't even do the text. You're just like, hey, I'm Kelly. I'm here. I got this really exciting project that I really want to talk to you about because I think it would really help streamline your system right now. Do you have just 2 minutes for me to talk?
Yeah, that was a great video right there. But so initially, first off, we send them like a message with a little bit of a value prop in it, something personalized to kind of catch their attention. And then the second step, so a couple days later, once we call them a couple times, we'll send a video. And usually that warrants a response. So it's like the magic bullet.
Do you have like a mini recording studio that you do this in? Like,
I
what's your
wish.
backdrop?
Oh gosh, that's the best part. So I'm obviously working from home and lots of little siblings in the house. So we have like this playroom, we call it. And that's where my home office is. So it's just in the corner of Megan, my little sister's playroom. So all around me, like, I'm looking at Disney characters, like Barbie doll mansions. Like, it's just a playroom. But then I have my little corner with just a green wall behind me. So no one will ever know. So mine's just green backdrop.
What are you using for the camera?
Just my laptop. So I actually got a little ring light for Christmas, which actually makes a huge difference. Makes them much more professional looking. But yeah, just my laptop. So there's a quick minute video, no longer, and they're super fast to make. So
I love it. Your parents got you a ring light so you could work more effectively while you're living at home. They're like,
all I wanted for Christmas.
Could we nudge her out of the nest any more aggressively? Like, take this light and go produce, girl. How did you get into SDR?
So my dad...
That's sales development rep, right?
Yes,
Just for those that didn't know.
Yeah.
So you're the tip of the spear for any kind of enterprise sales, right? So essentially you have... Who do you work for?
It's a company called Segment.
Gotcha. So you work for Segment. So you essentially keep trying to fill the pipeline. You might make, say, 50 or 100 calls and emails, and you're hoping that you get between like 1 and 5 really good responses that you can line meetings up with.
Yeah. And the key is that we're trying to only reach out to the cream of the crop, like the people that we really believe we can help. So when we do get a response, it's much more likely that we actually do have a qualified opportunity there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
How did you get into that? Because that's such a difficult world to exist in. I mean, you just get told no and blown off all day.
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. You definitely build some resilience. But one of my friends actually worked at the company, absolutely loved it, and was kind enough to refer me, and kind of taught me the ropes, got me into it a little bit, and I've just been loving it. It's a great group of people. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Where'd you go to school?
Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo.
Go Mustangs.
Yeah, go Mustangs.
I wanted to go to Cal Poly so badly.
Really?
Yes. So I don't know. So I was very much into math and engineering and physics and stuff when I was in high school. And I thought Cal Poly would just be fantastic. So it's a little bit cheaper than the UCs, and
Yeah.
it was far enough away from, I grew up in Concord, so it was far enough away from Concord. I was like, this will be great. But then I got into Cal, and I was like, oh, man.
You can't turn that down.
No, because I actually wanted to go to Santa Cruz instead. I was like, oh, it's kind of like a cross between Cal Poly
The
and
banana slugs. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my swim coach, God bless him, he looked at me and he was like, college is not a vacation. I was like, what do you mean, man? You're being ridiculous. He's like, no, like, for real, this is a chance. You need to go to the best place you get into. And I was so mad because I knew he was right. And I was like, oh. So, yeah, when I got into Cal, I was like, forget it. I gotta give it a shot. It's gonna be nasty and hard, and it was like, I don't care for really urban environments.
Yeah. Yeah,
I get urban stress.
I'm the same way. So many of my friends are moving to San Francisco right now, and I'm like resisting. Like, no, I'm staying in Danville, at least for the time being. But yeah.
What is that big push? Because there's a certain portion of recent grads that just cannot wait to get into the city, spend all of their money, their last penny, go into debt to live in some crammed apartment and go out to the wine bar,
which aren't even open right now. I mean, I guess I understand part of it. I think a lot of people miss that, like, college town environment, which I do too, but I feel like now is the perfect opportunity to just live at home. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I can, and just save as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, because the dollars you save now compared to the dollars you save when you're 30, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
Like, the dollars you save now are infinitely more valuable to you than something you make at 35. And you'll likely be making lots more money at 35, but if you lay a good foundation at like 23, you crush.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. It's good to hear. It's good to hear that from someone
It's
who's
true.
been through it.
Trust me, it's true.
Yeah.
When I graduated from college, I was so ready to be gone. I moved in. I was so tired. I lived in a rowing house, okay? And so it was really intense to live with like 11 guys. So for me, when I graduated, like, I need to get out. I need to find my own place. So it was ridiculous. I lived in this person's backyard in a converted 2-car garage. They called it a cottage. So when I started looking for cottages, right? So I'm on Craigslist and I find this cottage for $850 and it looks nice. And so I show up. And she's like, yeah, this is the cottage. So imagine literally a freestanding 2-car garage, but half of it was storage. So they literally essentially split it down the center, made half the storage, and then made the other portion into a, living space with tile floor, a little bathroom, 2-burner stove. I was like, king of my castle.
That's all you need.
It was it. Literally, so I had my fish tank, I had 2 fish tanks, I had a TV, and I had a laptop, and I just moved into this place.
That's amazing. So how did you start out? Were you working at that time, or?
Oh, really? So here's the thing. I went into Cal. So again, way into math, way into engineering. And I go into Cal as a math major, and I love math. Math makes sense to me. It's always clear. Yeah. And so I started doing math at Cal, and I was not as hardworking as I needed to be, because once you step it up with math, and you're studying mathematics in university, like it's the real deal.
Right.
So I was falling out of love with it a little bit because I couldn't rely on a lot of just natural aptitude, and meanwhile, I actually had to take oh my God, I was such a bad writer. I had to take a remedial writing test.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so it's called the Subject A test. So this is where they determine if you have to take this remedial writing course, or if you can just move on to normal writing, because there are a lot of people at, say, for instance, research institutions like the UCs that come from overseas and perhaps don't have the required amount of communication skills that they want, that the school wants you to have. So I take this test. I'm like, this test is dumb. So I take this test, and I'm next to my friend Marcel. Marcel, who came from Germany, right? Speaks good English, speaks very well, but he's from Germany. I was like, I got this, whatever. Yeah. Marcel's going to be in that remedial class. No, Marcel passes the test. I fail it.
No way.
So I have to go take this remedial writing course. And there were 12 people in the class. Okay. We met for 2 hours, 3 times a week. So a really intense time sink. And we had to write papers every single night. So we were doing 1 to 2 pages every single night of writing.
Wow.
So it was really intense. By the end, though, I started, tickle in my throat. By the end, I started I started getting, I was like, oh, I can kind of see. So then I took this rhetoric, I took a rhetoric course because I heard that rhetoric was a lot of writing, which it is. All rhetoric is persuasive language. So all you do is you read, you write, you study, you read, you write, you argue, you study. And I aced the class. And I was like, yes, wow. I kind of got it. And I was really into it. So I realized writing was basic if somebody taught you. So I went into the tutoring center, just wandered in. I'm like, hey, who do I talk to about getting a job? They're like, why do you want a job? I'm like, well, I want to help people write. I think it's really easy. I think you could help people very easily if you just communicate with them.
That's great.
And so they looked at my grades and were like, I'll give it a shot. And then I crushed. I started getting requested by professors who had students. They're like, I don't know who this guy is, but he helped the student last year, and I think he could really help this student. So they started referring directly to me. So I was helping all these Berkeley students. And then I graduated with the intent to go to law school, had been tutoring for years, and I picked up a private client, just tutoring in basic, I think, 5th grade math. Okay. And these people loved me. They signed me up for like 3 times a week for the next semester, and then their friends signed up, and then another 6th grader signed up, and all of a sudden I had all these kids, and I'm like, God, I love teaching.
That's awesome.
And I was 22.
22.
That's all. This is all I've ever done. I started tutoring when I was 20, and I have not stopped.
That's amazing that you found what you love so early.
I got really lucky.
That's awesome. So what is it about it that you love so much? Is it like when the person like understands it and it clicks?
I love that you're interviewing me. This is fantastic. No. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. I love the question. I think I've been thinking about this a lot, actually. I think there was a degree of academic loneliness that I experienced as a younger person. So I was a 4th kid. My parents did end up getting divorced, but I was the 4th kid of the family, littlest, and my older siblings were very bright. Okay, so my brother has a PhD from Princeton, and my sister's got a master's, and all of this stuff, right? So I was kind of the whipping boy as a kid academically. They were both in the GATE program. Yeah. Matt was not in the GATE program. So academically, as I was going through school, as I started to get better and better and better, instead of encouraging me and celebrating it, there was some degree of them trying to pull me back and say, like, yeah, for instance, when I got into the AP English and History class when I was a junior, my mom tried to talk me out of it. I was like, I had to test to get into this. I had to do a lot of stuff. I earned it. She was like, well, I just really think you'd be better. So when I took the SAT, I paid for it with my paper route money, and I got dropped off, and I went and took it, and I ended up getting a perfect score on it. And I remember not really having anyone to tell because I didn't have like an academic guide. I remember the only person I really wanted to tell at school was this geometry teacher that I disliked, and I wanted to rub it in her face. Wow. That's who I was at 17. It's embarrassing. But it was really, I think back on it, it's like I was really lonely academically. I didn't feel like I had somebody to rely on. I didn't feel like I had somebody rooting for me. And then when I went to Cal and I started tutoring, everywhere I looked, there was somebody saying like, hey, can you help me? And I was like, yes, I will help you. Like, lean on me. I got this. Like, we will get through this together. And everywhere I looked, there was more and more and more. And so for me, it's not that I have it's not that I think I'm going to have the answer for every student. It's that I know people will do better if they have someone that they know they can lean on, be a shoulder to cry on, be someone to cheer with, and to learn things. Yeah. Because if they feel that way, they'll be more vulnerable with you. They will admit that they have no idea what they're doing. They'll admit that they didn't try hard enough. They will dig deeper. And in the absence of that, you just have people going like robots through the class. Yeah. Like they have to really buy into it. And so for me, that's it. It's the relationship. Wow. It's becoming that for people. So they're not by themselves. What about you? What did you do in high school? How did you get into Cal Poly? Yeah, so, gosh, honestly, I feel like a lot of people going through high school kind of have this, like, dream school that they have in their mind. That was not me. I loved high school. Like, I had so much fun. I found amazing friends there.
And I'm also just such a family person. I'm a huge homebody. So I think the thought of living away from my family and my close group of friends was never really exciting to me. I think until I actually got there, and I realized that there's just so much I didn't really know about myself. Living on my own and getting to design my own day-to-day life was so exciting. But back to your question, how I picked Cal Poly, honestly, so many people love Cal Poly from San Ramon. I feel like that's kind of like the place to go. And it's beautiful. It's just close enough to home where I felt like I could come home if I needed to, but it was still like my own space where I could, be independent.
If I may ask, what do you mean design your own life, design your days?
Yeah, I think just getting to create what you want your life to look like. I love that part about living on my own. That's something I honestly kind of miss from living at home. Don't tell my parents that. But just getting to like say, okay, so I'm gonna like wake up in the morning, these are my goals for the day, I'm gonna go to the gym, then I'm gonna go to these classes, I'm gonna hang out with this friend, and just kind of getting to do what you want to do and knowing that it's what matters to you. I loved that part of college, just getting to do only things that really like lit me up and like inspired me. Was a really fun part about that.
Have you ever heard of Ralph Barcy?
No, I don't
Okay,
think
so Ralph Barcy is like one of the foremost SDR training guys like in the world, right? He works for Trey.io. Yeah. So he's their guy.
Oh.
And he's an incredible guy, but he has all of these, I call them Ralphisms. And he's got all these little sayings that just ring so perfectly true. And one of them is that the system is perfectly designed to get the result that it gets. Mm-hmm. And for the last couple months, I've started thinking about the system of my day, right? So, for instance, you're talking about like, I'm going to wake up at this time, I'm going to hit the gym, I'm going to eat this food, I'm going to hang out with my friend. You're essentially systematizing your day and trying to get a finished product at the end of the day, a certain level of gratification with your time or a certain level of physical fitness, taking care of yourself. And I feel like people are so removed from understanding that intimate relationship. It's like your day is perfectly designed to get exactly what you get at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like if you thought you were going to be very productive and you sat on the couch, sitting on the couch is going to get the exact result it gets, which is like you're probably more relaxed, but you might be more stressed out because you didn't get things done. And I feel like especially for younger people, the sooner they can realize that the way they put the Legos together with their day, the way they organize their time and structure everything, that is a system that's going to work to produce something.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. And I think too, it's interesting that it's so different for everyone. That's something that I'm learning too, just being an SDR, because your whole day is up to you. Like they don't tell you when to make calls, when to make videos. Like it's totally up to you. And for me, that was really intimidating at first. Just especially being remote, like you don't really have an example of what to do.
You don't see your friends sitting in the other cubicle just grinding.
Yeah, or even just like making calls together and like getting rejected and having that experience
cry on the shoulder.
Exactly.
He told me to piss off. Oh my God. Yeah, I had a friend years ago, and he started. This was, I think it was like 2011, so pretty, a while ago. And he started this social media management firm, right? That was his firm. In reality, what he was doing is going around to restaurants or businesses and saying, hey, who's in charge of your social media? Because 2010, 2011, businesses and restaurants and stuff and coffee shops, they weren't like savvy to Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and people were just starting. And so if you knew how to build and manage a social media account with like daily posts and things like that, that was a valuable thing. So he had worked for a corporation, and then he had I think he had left, and then he said, all right, I'm gonna do this thing. Okay. And I remember talking to him one day and saying, we were training together, we were training jiu-jitsu. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? And he said almost exactly what you said. He was like, you know what? It's such an odd thing because it's just like air. I was like, you're losing me here, man. So he said, look, it's almost like the day goes by, and it's just like this expanse of air that passes you.
Yeah.
And what the thing he was struggling with is there was nobody getting him to do things. So whether he did something or didn't, time moved on.
Exactly.
And it was either utilized or it wasn't. But it was the enormity of his options, the infinite possibility of like every single minute that kind of swallowed him whole, because he's kind of like, it's really hard to manage doing things or not doing things. And I had never,
an interesting point. Yeah.
I never thought about that when it was like, for me, it was kind of like, look, any minute I could work, I was going to work.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm going. I never had a boss, obviously. I never had a
manager or anything.
Yeah. But I knew how to work, and I also knew that if I didn't work as hard as I could, I was not going to be as well off as I could be later in life.
And so I guess you've always kind of been an entrepreneur, right?
That's all I've ever done, yeah.
That's really cool. So is that something you kind of struggled with when you were starting out, like how to design your day for, for success?
My absolute first cold call. Oh my God.
That's right. You probably had a cold call.
Yes.
You understand the pain.
Yes. Except I did not have anyone telling me what to say.
Wow.
So I'm tutoring, okay? But I'm tutoring like these 5th and 6th graders. And I'm like, well, this is good, but I feel like I could do more than tutor a 5th grader. And so it became obvious. It's like, well, you want to get into test prep. That's really what you should do.
Right.
Because then you're dealing with 16 and 17-year-olds. They're highly motivated. Their parents want them to do well. It's a short-term thing. Because after like 6 months working with the same person, a lot of times it's great, but sometimes you get really annoyed. If you're dealing with like a 6th grader, you're like, oh, you never get your homework done. One 6th grader I worked with, this was terrible, for a whole year. And at the end of this one semester, he hadn't turned in any of the homework we had worked on.
Any
So
of it?
no, we had done the homework, and he was having some troubles in his family, but we had done the homework. He just hadn't turned it in. So now his dad is livid with me that his grade is not great, and I'm like, we did this work. He didn't. I couldn't physically walk him into. So you get things like that dealing with younger people that are tough, and you can't square and scream at a 6th grader. You can do that with a 17-year-old.
Yes.
But the point is, I wanted to get into it, into the test prep. So I actually went and met a guy who works for A&J Tutoring. He was one of the founders of it. I had a connection with him through my sister at Davis, and he said, okay, well, look, this is my binder. I'll work a deal out with you. You give me a certain percentage of your SAT prep over, the first year and second year, and we go from there. I'm like, great. So he said, well, how do I get business? He said, here, look, take this book. And it was like a phone book, right? It's the WACAC, Western Association of College and Academic Counselors or something.
Oh, my gosh.
And he said, call the people in your area. And he just hands it to me and, like, walks away. And so I go home.
Cold call training.
Oh my God. So it's Friday. It's Friday at 3:30. And I'm staring at this WACAC book. And I know, I saw the guy on like Tuesday, Aaron on Tuesday. So it'd been all week. And I knew enough to be like, Matt, you are punking out. You pick up the phone. I knew what the right thing to do was like, oh my God. So it's 3:30 on Friday. And my hand's like shaking, right? So I call this woman, Colleen, I can't remember her name. It was a long time ago. But the point is, I call Colleen, and she picks up. She's like, yes? Not a very...
no.
I'm like, hi, my name's Matt. I'm an SAT... I tutor... I have an SAT prep. And she's like... I'm sorry, this is a really inappropriate time to be calling. I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't know why she was so cranky. It was 3 o'clock.
Oh, no.
It was not like I called her at 8.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I managed to get her to go to lunch with me, and I presented well. I wore khakis and a button-up shirt,
There
and
you go.
like had this leather-bound binder. But it was terrifying. Like I didn't have a sales pitch. I didn't understand what a sales pitch was. It took me a year and a half to understand that if somebody called me, I had essentially 45 seconds to get them to really like me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that for like a year and a half, 2 years, until I was like, oh my God, this person has called me to make me the solution to her problem. And I'm being like lukewarm on the phone.
Yeah.
I need to be like offering to buy her dinner and like, champagne from the heavens. Like I will fix all of your problems. But
That's
I
too
didn't have
funny.
somebody teaching me
No,
that. That's why I
wow.
think that the SDR training is probably super valuable, not just for the near term, but understanding the relationship you're engaging in business with people. Because it's something that,
Totally.
in the absence of understanding that nuance, which is, hey,
Yeah.
look, you need to be the solution. Even if you don't understand the problem 100%, you need to find the solution because
Yeah.
they're talking to you because they haven't been able to find the solution.
Yeah.
And you need to find it
Such
for
a
them.
point, yeah. And that's kind of the fun part about it too. I feel like it's a challenge sometimes. I mean, definitely not when there's jerks who pick up the phone.
Oh my gosh.
But it definitely is always different every day, and it keeps you on your toes, for sure.
What do you want to do long term though? Do you
You know-
want to get into more enterprise sales?
Yeah.
Like what's your goal?
I'm still trying to figure it out. There's lots of aspects of sales that really interest me and excite me. Yeah, so just still keeping my options open. I love the idea of getting to manage people and help other SDRs who are just starting out, because it's an overwhelming experience. I think it's a great experience, and it's huge learning experience, but I think that's kind of my big sister in me talking. I love kind of getting to mentor people and just share my experiences with them. So that's something that I think would be really fun too, but it's still figuring it out.
But you could mentor people and not do that professionally. Like
Yeah.
the whole idea of managing people to me is so terrifying.
Yeah.
What appeals about it to you?
That's true. It can be terrifying. I think having good managers though makes it much more approachable. My manager right now is amazing, and I honestly don't know if I could be successful in this role without her. She was an SDR when she started out, and knowing that she was is so comforting. I didn't know that it would be, but it is. Just knowing that someone else has like been through that same roller coaster of emotions, and I mean it's not an easy job necessarily, at least mentally, but
Well, I wouldn't imagine.
yeah.
Like
so,
you just get told no all day long.
yeah, but the yeses make it all worth it, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What did you study?
I studied political science, actually. So,
Well, can you answer me this?
360.
What did you actually study in political science? Because I know it's a popular degree,
That's a
but
good question. Lots of reading, lots of writing, debating. That part was fun. I liked that. We actually learned a lot about just kind of how different political systems work, like not only in the U.S. but overseas too. And then I got to take a lot of elective courses too, which was really fun. This might have been my favorite because I was similar to you, I guess. I was on the pre-law course, taking all those classes, thinking about law school.
did you take the LSAT?
I didn't. No, I
Man.
kind of, yeah.
It's a bear of a test.
Oh, I bet it is. How long did it take to study for that?
I went hard. So by the end of my time at Cal, I was a machine. Like
Yeah.
I would outwork anyone in anything. I had no problem. So
That's amazing.
I would go to the library on Saturday and Sunday and rip 8 hours both days doing nothing but LSAT work. So I do tests back to back
Wow.
both days. Just boom, 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 no problem. So I studied for a year and I
Okay.
crushed. I did very well on portions of it, and then the only thing that attracted me about law school was the prospect of teaching law after,
Oh,
because
okay.
I got into the teaching bug. I
Yeah.
was like, I really like helping
That's
people.
awesome.
Yeah.
So what was your secret? Caffeine? Is that what kept
No,
you going?
I actually didn't really start drinking coffee till after college. Oh my gosh, I'm such a jerk. Listen to this. All right, so I was dating this girl in college, and I didn't drink coffee in college.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and
That's impressive.
yeah, I was a rower too, so I was up early and stuff. Anyway, so this poor girl would get coffee, right? On like a nice Saturday afternoon, she'd get a coffee. And I'd be like, what are you getting that for? That's a drug. I'd give her such a hard time. I don't know why she hung out with me. Anyway, she was like, I got to study later. And then I'd catch her a time when I knew she wouldn't study. I'm like, why are you getting a coffee? You're not even studying. She's like, I like drinking coffee. Like, just let me enjoy my coffee. And I'd always give her a hard time.
Funny.
This is terrible to admit. My wife and I actually bonded over coffee. So I started drinking coffee
Really?
afterwards, and we would go to coffee shops and sit for 5-6 hours and just watch cars go by, drink coffee. We'd get Pete's coffees and go sit in the display case in Pottery Barn. So the one that faces the street that has like the
Yeah.
couches.
That's like Elf when he's sleeping in there.
Yes. So we'd go behind the barrier and then just sit down and drink it. And people would wave at us because they thought we were mannequins. And then
Yeah.
we'd wave back and they'd be like, oh, God. But we just hang out. So at our
That's
wedding,
funny.
we loved coffee so much. We had our tables were all named after coffee houses that we would hang out at.
Oh
Our
my
favors,
gosh, I love that.
our favors were custom coffee cups filled with chocolate covered espresso beans. That's the kind of jerk I am. This poor girl I date in college, I just ruthlessly harass about coffee, and now
it
I
was
absolutely love
a
it.
part of your wedding. I
Yeah,
love it. That's
God, what a terrible
hilarious.
person. Your mom downs coffee like crazy though.
Oh yeah, and Ashley, my sister, she actually works at Pete's now. Funny you bring that up. She's a barista.
That's not funny at all. I think she really has a problem.
No.
She would come into my class. It would be 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And like class is over at
Oh, yeah.
9:30, and she would say, "Hey, can I get a coffee?"
She's
I was
no
like,
problem.
"Ashley, it's 9 o'clock." She's like, "I got some work to do," and her feet would be vibrating. She's like, "I gotta go. I gotta." She would only sleep like 4 hours a night.
I know, she's crazy. She's actually just started doing. You've probably heard of this. It's like Miracle Morning.
No, I've never. I'm not very connected. I have 3 little kids. I just
Yeah.
painfully get through my day. Like I don't. What's Miracle Morning?
Yeah, so she told me about it. It's this book she's reading, but you wake up an hour earlier than you normally would, and I guess it's like 6 10-minute blocks. For the first 10 you read, second 10 you work out, which I don't know what workout you can do in 10 minutes.
Well,
but she
8-minute
makes it
abs
work.
plus 2 minutes of stretching.
There you go. You know. And then it's like 10 minutes of journaling or something. But anyways, it breaks up your whole hour into like these little increments, and it's supposed to like set your day up for success. So then she goes right from there to the coffee shop, and she's a little coffee machine. Yeah.
How has that been going for her?
She's loving it. I mean, selfishly, I love that she's going to St. Mary's because I get to see her so often when she's home. But yeah, she loves it. She makes us little lattes at home with her little milk frother, so we get spoiled, which is nice.
I'm a little disgusted by your family because it actually seems like you like each other, and it really bothers me because there are so many of you. I'm like, there has to be some hatred in this family.
Oh gosh, well,
But I mean, look, don't answer that. It's more of a joke, but yeah, like you all seem like such a tight knit, functional machine together. It's really inspiring. I mean, 6 kids and 2
Yeah.
parents that don't hate each other.
yeah, we're lucky.
Do you have any pets?
That's what I was gonna say. That's our one source of hatred, I think. Just kidding. We love him, but we did get a quarantine puppy named Buddy. He's a golden retriever,
Okay.
but we're just not a pet family. Like, we've never had a pet, not even a fish. Like, we just don't do pets. I think we've always just had...
You are people. You like people. That's why your
Yeah,
parents had 6
exactly,
kids. Like
exactly.
your mom actually told me she wished she had 7.
Oh, I know.
I was like,
yeah.
you are so
Yeah.
God bless you, woman.
I
So what's wrong with
I don't
Buddy?
understand. Nothing is wrong with him. He's just being a dog. Like, he's just doing dog things. we just were not prepared, I think. We got him, and he was actually a surprise for my youngest sibling, Megan, because she's been asking for a puppy for years. And that was like the best day ever. Like, we brought him in from the place where we got him, and she ran out and she like starts crying happy tears and like picks him up. It was like actually out of a movie. It was the cutest thing. But then as he gets older, like, he's a puppy, so he starts
Chewing on
biting
everything.
like crazy, chewing on everything, and we just never trained him. It's completely on us, but you know,
We
it's
just put a
source of
deposit on a
things.
dog today.
Oh, did you?
A French bulldog.
Oh,
I'm
a
naming
French
him Marcel.
bulldog. After your friend Marcel?
That's right.
There we go.
Actually, I'm gonna call him Marcy. Marcy's going to have a bed in my classroom.
Oh,
I'm
no
gonna
way.
football carry Marcel everywhere with me. I'm gonna get a dog backpack. I'm gonna be that guy. His
You
little
need to
French
be that
bulldog
guy.
ears are gonna be poking out of my backpack. I don't care at all. You can
That's
judge
the
me all day
perfect size,
long.
though.
It's
Like a little
25
little
pounds.
one. Yeah.
They get to be 25 pounds.
That's
They're really tough.
perfect.
They're pretty athletic, but they can chill on the couch.
Yeah, best
Apparently,
of both worlds.
apparently they have really bad gas, but we'll have to work that out.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
I'm a little terrified though because I already have 3 super high energy boys, and it's
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, if I have to potty train one more thing,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
it's going to be a little brutal.
It's a process. It takes time, but we'll get there.
You know what's interesting? Ralph, again, my buddy who's the SDR coach, he has his Ralphisms, and one of his resolutions that he shared with me is that he wants to manage his energy instead of managing his time.
That's interesting.
Right. And it was a weird thing because as I was thinking about it, I'm like, wait, how is that a distinction? You know instantly there's a distinction there, but you don't, for me at least, I was like, wait, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
And so I started doing it. I started figuring out, okay, where is my energy wasted? Where am I mismanaging it? And I started realizing that I was doing things, say at like 2 o'clock. I'd come to the office to do a podcast and get some work done. But one of the problems is like 2 o'clock, I'm really tired.
Yeah.
I've been grinding, so I'm uninspired or I'm totally inefficient. And so what I started doing is, instead of doing that, literally the second I wake up, get dressed, go straight to Pete's Coffee. I say hi to my kids and my wife, and then I leave without breakfast or anything. I work for 3 hours, come home, and now it's 9:30, and I'm jacked up on caffeine. I have crushed 3 straight hours of work. The boys generally are, they would usually start school around 8, and then my preschooler would be there at 8:30. So my wife is getting home from dropping everyone off around 9 and taking care of stuff. So I'm getting home right around that same time. But now I've gotten done with all of the work that I would have had to like fight to do at 1 o'clock or something.
Amazing. Isn't that interesting how just one shift can like change your whole day?
Yes, and what made me think of it is you talking about your sister with the miracle morning. I feel like there's this shift towards like relearning how to live. It's because it's like, do you reflect on your day? Do you journal? Do you work out? And the miracle morning is apparently trying to check these boxes because we've become so detached from our best ways of living, right? Because the best ways of living are some kind of intellectual stimulation, some kind of social exchange, some kind of personal reflection, some kind of physical whatever, and we don't do any of that.
Yeah, that's
like the vast majority of people are just running around ragged. They're not stopping to think at all about like, hey, was my day good for me today? Or people instantaneously know, no, today was not good for me, and then they move on to tomorrow without really stopping and saying, hey, if it wasn't good, what wasn't good? What aspect of it did I have control of? What am I responsible for? I wonder if I could change that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But there's not that type of reflection. So I feel like you ever hear of Marie Kondo?
Yeah.
Marie
Oh,
Kondo.
yes. I heard all about her.
God bless this woman. So that to me, another thing. It's kind of like how we have lost the capacity to even manage our environment.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think that's why, obviously this whole time has been crazy this past year, but one of the good things that's come out of it is that ability just to kind of pause and like reflect a little bit on what life was like when we were all going a million miles an hour and what it's like when we get to slow down a little bit. And I know, at least personally, there are some parts about this pace that I hope I get to keep when things do go back to normal.
Like what? What do you mean?
I think just slowing down. Like, being home all the time can drive me a little crazy, a little
bonkers.
Cabin fever. But like, one thing I do love is when I hit that like 2 p.m. 2:30 slump, which I have the same thing. My energy just like, it's not the same as it is in the morning. My dad also works from home, and we just go on a walk. Like, we'll walk. We try to walk like 3 to 5 miles together every day. And that's like my favorite time of the day, because we just talk about like random stuff, like anything really. Like, we've had such awesome conversations over the past year that we probably never would have had otherwise. And at the same time, like, we get to walk together, come back, I'm like juice for the rest of my day. So like, little things like that, I don't know that I ever would have found if it wasn't for this kind of pause that we really never get.
You walk and talk with your dad for an hour to an hour and a half every day.
Yeah, pretty much every day.
Yeah, I guarantee you would never have had that.
No, never. I don't.
You'd
even
be
think
living
I
in the
talked to
city
him
with your
Exactly.
girlfriends,
I know. Which
running
wouldn't be
fast.
all bad either, but yes, yeah. So there are some good things. Are there any things that you feel like I don't know, you found during quarantine that you want to keep?
That's such a difficult one. So there are aspects of it that are there are definitely aspects of it that are good and bad. The things that became very difficult is we don't have a very large house, and this is fine, I'm not complaining, but we have very high energy boys, we don't have a big yard. When we were at home and the fire swept through and we couldn't go outside and the boys couldn't see anyone and they couldn't do anything, that was some of the darkest time in my parenting life, because it's kind of like, okay, and mind you, that was in the pit of, SAT hell, where all the tests had been canceled, and the people that I was still working with were, and again, all of them got a chance to eventually take it or realize they didn't need it, but that's not great either, because I don't like the idea that somebody would pay for this prep and then be like, well, I don't need it anyway. Like, that's terrible. So professionally, there were just so many unknowns and so much. I was just taking L's left and right. Like, I was on Zoom with students, and that was rough, and then parents weren't happy, and that was rough, and I couldn't do anything about it. And so there were times that I absolutely would not want to repeat. Yeah. It was just too much, and nobody wants to acknowledge limitations in their capacity, but I was not well suited for that. Totally. Right? And there are some people that can dig deep and they're like, we just watched movies. It's like, I couldn't get my 4-year-old to sit through a movie to save, like, he'd just be hitting everyone and, like, not crazy, but like, brothers. So they like throw toys at each other. It's like, we're trying to watch Moana. Just come on. So there are aspects of it like that, but the thing that I love that you keep, that if you're doing it right, okay, so there was an absence of work, okay, nobody was doing test prep as seems appropriate, right? So what I got doing was, one, with the families that I knew that had lost employment, I started inviting those kids to class, like, just come. You don't need to pay me, because I wanted to get to work, right? I didn't care if I was getting paid. I was like, this is what I do. I need to fill this class. I need to be with students that I'm helping. I feel like I'm bringing value. Yeah. Whether or not I get paid for it, that's important. So that was the first thing I did, and I loved that I was able to do that. The next thing it did, it allowed me to branch out into doing really fun, silly things. So we started doing, you ever see the marble races on YouTube? No. Oh my God, they're hilarious. You need to check these out.
Oh wait, are those the ones where they build all of those contraptions?
Yes, and the marbles go through, and you're like, and the commentator's awesome, and you're screaming for like the cat's eye marble, and the oceanics are coming up, and it's ridiculous, right? So I started doing eraser stacking competitions. And so I had this iMovie program. Everybody has it on their Apple. I started figuring out how to use it. So I was doing these competitions within class, like timers, commentating fun. All of this. So I started getting into that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then with the added video editing skills, just accidentally, I started doing like a TikTok, and I started doing this, and I ended up doing the mayoral installation, the entire production for the town of Danville. What? Because I had done interviews with the town council members when they were running for election, and then they hired me to do, it wasn't a payoff or anything, that I interviewed with everyone else, but so all awesome. These random things where it's kind of like, if I had been charging ahead like we always see we're doing, I may have not developed the video editing skills. I may have not done that production for the town of Danville. I may have not, X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. So it's too soon to tell whether it's as grand and as awesome as I'd like to imagine, but at the very least I know it's like, look, you're a different person now because of this. You have a different skill set. You have a different belief in I'm 38, right? So to know that I knew nothing about video editing 4 or 5 months ago, and now I can do great video editing and do actual quality video production, that's great. Yeah. Like, it's such an awesome thing to know. It's like, oh, you're not too old of a dog yet. You can learn some new tricks.
Can always learn new tricks, yeah.
Well, you hope so. I think there's some people that just give up, don't you?
Yeah. I guess so. I mean, that's true. I think that's true also in career. I think people my age, I'm already kind of seeing this where you feel like you have to know what you want to do. You have to know what your path is, exactly what your next, like, hopefully promotion will be. But I love the idea of just, like, playing it by ear. And, like, if you have something that sparks your interest, maybe when you're, like, 45 or 50, like, go do that. I don't know.
Right.
That's interesting to me. I'm actually reading this book right now called Big Magic. I don't know if you've heard of it.
You have a lot of magic in your life. It's the magic morning and now Big Magic.
I know. There's a theme. I need to branch out.
There's some magic in your house. I need to come check it out. What's Big Magic about?
Yeah, so she talks about the idea of ideas and how they're like living and breathing things, which, you know, I don't know how much I buy into this, but it's an interesting theory.
Well, they're living and breathing as much as you are, because without you, they're gone too. So you have to acknowledge there's some capacity. Yeah. There's some correlation between the, like, rocks that we know of don't really have ideas.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, there you go.
Anyhow, you were saying.
Anyway, her whole point is that when you get an idea, you either act on it and you either, like, bring it to fruition, or it leaves you and it goes and finds someone else to do it. But no matter what, like, it will find someone who's, like, willing to make it happen. It might take years, it might take generations, it might take weeks. But if you ever have that experience where you had an idea and then you, like, push it off, or you brush it under the rug, or you procrastinate, and then all of a sudden you just don't have that motivation to do it or the same passion for it, and then you see someone else do something similar, it's because it, like, left you and went to someone else. And I think that's so interesting. Like, what if you have this idea that comes to you when you're already set on your career? Are you just not gonna entertain the idea of it? I don't know. I always want to be open to new ideas. I like that idea.
That's beautiful. That's probably in a much more eloquent and beautiful way explaining what I would take away from this year, which was the capacity to pursue these completely tangential projects and skill sets that did not, you know, like doing the eraser stacking competitions and doing silly things like that were not going to make me any money. Mm-hmm. And they did take time, but they were super fun and developed a skill set that I could then use to do other things. Yeah. What an interesting concept. You know what the big magic is with ideas, in my opinion? Is having an idea and engaging some plans. So say you have an idea to start a company. Mm-hmm. What's your company? What's your dream company? Like, what would you do?
Dream company? Gosh, I need to think about
like
that.
An SDR training company, a writing training company.
Yeah, let's go with SDR training.
Okay.
I like that.
How about you start a consulting firm that teaches people how to make 30 to 60-second videos with maximum punch and effectiveness from home. Mm-hmm. So you send them a box, okay? Mm-hmm. And the box has a backdrop, it has a microphone, it has a camera stand. They use their phone, so everything they need is in this box to set up, and you along with it comes like a video series to help them do different. So somebody who has no idea how to do video editing, you're like, listen, you're going to learn these 5 skills and you're going to be able to do a wide variety and make this look really professional and efficient. That's your dream thing, to sell these boxes to improve people's video production. Because let's face it, this is it. Mm-hmm. Like, if you think the companies that now have not had people in their offices for a year and are still in business successfully are just going to bring everyone back, you're kidding yourself. Why would anybody rent high rises at like $1,000 a square foot?
Yeah, there's no reason to.
When it's like, look, you were doing just fine in your playroom, so you get back.
Exactly.
So you figure out how to do that. This is your dream business, okay? There's some step in between having the idea, having everyone around you, except that one naysayer friend that you stopped listening to years ago, everyone around you say that's a genius idea, and you ordering your first box, just a prototype. There's something that happens in between there that crushes the magic of that idea. It's almost like what we were talking about before. It's like, just buy a microphone. One step at a time. And the thing that's magical to me is having somebody who has the capacity to feel like the butterflies with the idea, to feel the excitement, to feel the enthusiasm, and then feel the overwhelming, crushing just ambiguity of the situation. Like, you don't know what's right. You don't know what to do. Nobody's giving you instructions. You got a unique idea. Nobody's giving you a playbook for your unique idea. So having that and still charging ahead.
Yeah. That's
when it's not entertaining, when nobody's giving you high fives for it, when nobody's saying, you got this, this is great, and just being like, you know what, I think this is good. Like, there's a magic there. There's a character there that's unique.
Yeah, much easier said than done. I think they call it grit, right? When you gotta keep getting up.
Yeah, I guess. Pushing. Is that all it is, though?
It's gotta be more than that, I think. Because I think fear comes into it, too. Because there's always going to be an element of fear when you're doing something that's unknown and where you don't know the outcome. But I think some people have an ability, and maybe it can be learned, but like to have fear motivate you rather than paralyze you. And I feel like it can be learned with practice. I'm definitely not an expert on that by any means.
Oh, you're not? Okay. You're the box lady.
I wish
you're
I
not
was.
You're not the expert on it. But here's something. Don't you think you have to remove yourself from your standard algorithm of action? Right? Like, what I mean is, we always establish risk versus reward in everything we're doing. I'm very much a utilitarian, right? I believe in that line of thought, which is, hey, we are all geared 100% of the time to maximize pleasure and minimize pain. That's all we want to do. That is at the core of every single action that we engage in. And for something like this, where no one else is telling you that it's a good idea, and you don't even know how to do it, it's almost like you have to suspend your operating system for a second.
Yeah.
Be like, I don't know how this is going to play out. It's taking my resources as far as money. It's taking my time. It's taking my thoughts. I'm going to keep going, though.
Yeah.
And it's beyond grit. It's like you suspend your reality for a second, and you're like, I'm going to step out of the normal way of action.
That's so true. And I think it's interesting how you bring up, like, avoiding pain and trying to gain pleasure, like, as the core of who humans are.
Sure.
And that's probably part of it, too. Like, it's like you almost have to trick your mind into believing that if you don't go after that idea, or if you don't pursue this scary thing, that's going to be more painful than it would be to not. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
No, for sure.
To think about. Yeah.
I absolutely, and that's the standard way of thought, which is, hey, I don't like doing this, but I like the result of not doing this even less.
Right.
But that takes forethought. Right? Like nobody. Getting married is a really big thing, right? And if you're marrying the right person, it's supposed to be easy and it's supposed to be fun. Now, that doesn't mean it's always easy and always fun. You're always going to get into an argument. You're always going to have conflict, especially once you start having kids. That's just the nature of life, right?
Yeah.
But you always have to think, look, when you get in a fight, I don't like this situation, but I like my future less if I don't work this situation out. And I think there are a lot of people, and I'm not saying anyone's wrong for splitting up, right? Like, there are some people that just aren't going to jive. They aren't going to work.
Right.
Like, my parents the more I've learned over the years, the more it's like, there was no saving that one. You just were not right. But I think in general, when you start looking at it as far as, hey, look, it's painful for me to stay in this relationship. It's like, yeah, but look at yourself in 15 years when you need to get, like, a hip replaced. What, are you going to have your friend pick you up from the hospital?
Exactly.
Like, is your dad flying in to like give you chicken noodle soup? It's not all unglamorous, right? Like, what about like a travel buddy?
Yeah.
Like, my wife and I just dream. We were talking just yesterday about how getting coffee, like, we used to get coffees and drive around for hours with nothing to do. But just talk trash, look at houses. We would drive through like the Berkeley Hills and see all the super old houses and the brown shingles, and that was it. And she was like, I can't wait for the time when we can do that again. I mean, we have little kids, so it's going to be a while, but
that's true. Yeah.
That's like our thing. And it's kind of like, who are you driving around with
That's so
in
fun.
10 years? Like, yeah, you're not happy you're in an argument. You're not happy you're in this situation, but not working out this situation produces a much less favorable future for you.
Right. That's really interesting. It's a trade-off.
Right. Well, I think it's what gets people like you going. Like, not everybody would be willing to be an SDR. Not everybody would be willing to get told no 95 times a day and get lukewarm okays, 5 times. I mean, people there aren't that many people geared to do that will survive. But if you don't do it, it's a lot worse.
Totally. I agree. And you just, I mean, I don't know. In my mind, I'm just like, okay, it's a couple years. It'll teach you a lot, hopefully.
Right.
And then you just got to get the most out of it that you can and come away more resilient. That's the hope.
Then move on with your box business.
Exactly.
That's going to be great.
I'm envisioning it now.
It's
ready.
beautiful. I got some stuff to show you already. It's great. Listen, I got to let you go, Kelly. Thank you for coming.
Thank
you for sharing a drink with
this
me.
Was so
what a
much
treat.
Fun.
Absolutely. Let's do another one in a couple months. See where you are.
Yeah. Thanks
All right,
so much,
excellent.
Matt.
Thanks, everybody.